Video games are a great form of escapism. Coming home after a long day of work from your mundane 9 to 5 job in the real world, you hop on the game and escape to the virtual world where you can become anything you want to be and do anything you want to do. The possibilities are as endless as the amount of video games that exist out there. You can play as a Nordic Viking guy who has the power to shout magic words at dragons. Or you can play as a cybernetically enhanced mercenary that cuts through everything in their way with their katana in slow motion. Or you can play as a literal slice of bread. Whatever fantasy you want to play out is possible in the virtual world. You can play as anything you want to. And considering how a majority of gamers are male, it's probably safe to say that most of these games are made to appeal to the male fantasy.
I wrote a blog post a while ago about why I f***ing hate video games, because this is what it does. It appeals to like the male fantasy.
One of those fantasies, of course, is being able to play as a member of the opposite gender. That's right, instead of choosing to roleplay as an idealized version of themselves, a lot of guys would rather choose to play as a girl character instead. Now, there's nothing wrong with a guy playing as a girl character, I do it myself all the time, but I've noticed that this phenomenon is actually quite popular with the fellas to the point where I'd say that a lot more guys prefer to play as a female character over a male character. But why though? Why do so many dudes choose to play as girl characters in video games? And why do we, in many cases, prefer female characters over male ones? Sex appeal. Now, this one's pretty obvious. I think everyone could have guessed that this was one of the big reasons. It's the sex appeal of the characters. I don't think it's far-fetched to say that most guys that play video games like looking at pretty girls. It doesn't matter which way you swing, hot girls are pretty much universally visually appealing to everybody. But how does that translate to guys wanting to play as one though? Well, it's because of the simple fact that we just like looking at that sweet piece of assets while we play. For example, in Nier Automata, you can play as both 2B and 9S. 9S being the boy and 2B being the girl. I'm sure some of you might have recognized her around the internet. She's quite the popular character on some certain cultured sites, if you know you know. But if you still haven't ever heard of these characters before, they're the main protagonists in Nier Automata, and they're decently well liked by everyone. But 2B is by far the more beloved character of the two by a mile, and it's not even close. Why is that the case though? Well, I don't really think it takes a rocket scientist to figure out the reasoning why. She's hot. It's as simple as that. People like 2B because she's an attractive female character that's also really badass. Even the creator himself, Yoko Taro, said that he designed her to be that way just because he likes hot women. There's really nothing more to it.
There was quite some talk about the design of 2B in the last few weeks, and you probably know it better than anyone else because you have basically the internet sent you all of the 2B hentai there was. So I wanted to ask you about that. And my question is, obviously with characters like Kanye, there was like a backstory to her looks. There was something to it. Can I expect some like a backstory explaining her design, because why does a battle robot look like this? Or was it just because her designer really likes big thighs and pretty women?
女の子が好きなだけです。
And it seems like a lot of guys hold that same sentiment because the fanfare speaks for itself. This even applies to games with custom characters as well, because believe it or not, guys like playing dress up as well. Albeit our version is less focused on looking dainty and petite and more so on looking badass or hot. That's why pretty much every game with a customization feature, the female characters almost always have way more options than the male characters do, and it's not even close. That's not just by coincidence either, that's by design, because men make up the majority of the consumer base of these video games. Men are the ones mostly paying for the cosmetics to make their female characters look more visually appealing. Men are the ones buying those G-string bikinis for their waifus so they can stare at them harder while they get harder. Men are the one who would easily spend over 3 hours in the Cyberpunk 2077 character creator installing a bunch of cosmetic mods in order to make their female V look as perfect as possible. Sex appeal is a huge part of why guys choose to play the characters that they play, because they simply would rather be looking at a hot woman rather than a hot man. Now, not everyone is looking to be horny when playing video games, and sometimes people want to play as someone who just looks interesting. Whether it be cute, badass, or weird, there doesn't necessarily need to be some sort of attraction to the character. Some people just enjoy the fantasy that they embody. Like how some people main Jet in Valorant, and while she might be decently attractive to some people, her sex appeal isn't really the main reason why she's so popular. It's more so her aesthetic and her demeanor that makes her really popular with the male gamers. Or like how a lot of people like to main Katarina in League of Legends because they resonate with her edgy assassin aesthetic that she gives off. A lot of guys aren't trying to be horn dogs when they play games, they look past the sex appeal and favor the aesthetics more, which leads me to the next reason why some guys choose to main girl characters. Personality. I know it's hard to believe, but some guys actually choose to play girl characters because of their personality, unironically. They actually like how the characters are written and presented to the audience. They resonate with them on a personal level and find deeper meaning in their backstory, their goals, or their ambitions. These guys are the type of people who look past the surface level stuff and judge characters based on how they act and the impression that they give off. There doesn't necessarily need to be some sort of sex appeal to make these characters likable to these guys, although it's not mutually exclusive. Oftentimes, they're still pretty attractive design-wise, but it's not the main reason why these guys play as a female character, although it could still certainly be a factor. For example, Shadowheart from Baldur's Gate 3, I would say that she's fairly attractive, but she's no Victoria's Secret model. Her looks aren't the reason why so many people overwhelmingly chose to play with her though. The reason why is because everyone loved her prickly yet caring personality and her story arc. She was one of the best written characters within the very large cast of Baldur's Gate 3, and the results speak for themselves. A majority of players almost always chose to either play as her or have her as a companion because she's just that likable. That's the power of having amazing writing. Some guys even look past the character design altogether and just choose based off of vibes alone. Like how some decide to main Isabel in Smash because they just love the vibes that she gives off. The sweet and cuddly persona that she has is incredibly heartwarming and not at all a facade for a far more sinister and demonic entity lying deep within. Although in my observations, personality is probably one of the last reasons why a guy might choose to play as a girl character in a video game. I'm not saying that there aren't people who do, but the number is not as big as the next reason why. Gameplay. This is probably the biggest reason why so many grown men decide to play as a female character. It's because they simply enjoy the gameplay that they provide. Just like the guys who prefer personality, these people tend to prioritize less on the looks of the character and more on what kind of gameplay that comes with them. Sometimes the character's appearance is the last thing we would consider when choosing a quote-unquote main. These guys look solely on the skills and abilities that come with the character and see how much they vibe with it. Everything else is just the cherry on top. The character could be a literal block of wood for all they care, and these guys would still play them because at the end of the day, gameplay is king. For example, like how some people choose to main Wraith in Apex Legends because they love how fast and agile she is with her abilities that lets her zip around the battlefield with ease. Or like how some people in Street Fighter choose to main Cammy because she has an aggressive moveset that complements their preferred playstyle. It doesn't really matter what the character looks like or what their gender is because these people will always choose the gameplay options that best suit their own preferences over anything else. That's why there are people who play weird looking or even ugly characters. That's why you see some people play as Faust from Guilty Gear. Like, what is this guy even? These types of people don't care about looking stylish or cool or anything like that. They just play to either win or have fun. Maybe eventually they'll take vanity into account once they start investing more time into the game that they're playing. But usually everything that's not gameplay is of very little value to these types of gamers. And that's pretty much every reason I could think of as to why a lot of guys choose to play as female characters in video games. But that's just me. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Do you think I missed something? Let me know down below and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content in the future. See ya.